Hello, I'm Dr. Deborah Sword. For decades, I've been a conflict specialist as a professor, trainer, practitioner, and conflict coach. Now I want to share those decades of research and experience in short podcasts based on a book I'm writing called Conflict Owner's Manual. I'm here with my co-host and friend, Tyson Bankert.
Hi everyone, my name is Tyson. I am a community developer and artist here, and I am really glad that we can talk about conflict and learn a little bit more about how to be the owners of conflict.
Well, Tyson, as you know, most people don't want to deal with conflict, especially when
Hmm.
life's already hard. For many people, conflict takes energy and adds worry. So I was thinking that in this weekly podcast, you and I could share ways to increase people's conflict competence, our conflict competence. I define conflict competence as the ability to use your good interpersonal skills, even when you have big emotions, high conflict, and low enthusiasm for a fight.
Hmm. I often feel like conflict is inevitable in my life. It is always quite consistent, and I'm really happy to do conflict better. Those big emotions you mentioned, or that feeling of urgency, at least for me, when conflict hits, I definitely have some tells in my own experience. So often I start to ramble, I pull my fingers. I typically feel really desperate when I am having to engage with conflict, especially when I want to be right or when I think I'm right. And it oftentimes can feel really unexpected. Uh, and conflict happens when I really want to be liked. My tells are increased the more at stake I feel in that conflict, that those relationships are at stake. And I really have to focus on having to be really competent in conversation before I get to that conflict in being competent. So often those two things are very much always at. I want to be have in conversation with folks, but usually those emotions take over, leading me to feeling quite incompetent in that conflict.
Those are really good insights. And I like what you have to say about stakes and the importance, changing the context and how you feel about the conflict. Those who are lucky enough to be conflict competent, they react in conflict much like they do in regular conversation. High emotion doesn't stop them from thinking and speaking like they would usually in casual conversation. Conflict competence absolutely will not prevent you having those demoralizing 3 a.m. flashes of brilliance when you wake up and suddenly you have the perfect comeback to what you wish you had said. I call those the and then I should have said moments.
Right.
I've had those 3 a.m. wake ups.
Me
I've
too.
given workshops where 3 a.m. I thought, oh man, could I have done that better? Than I should have said. So I get it. And in this podcast, those are the moments that we want to minimize by helping people develop their conflict competence.
I often think about that when you say the 3 a.m. I should have said is those moments where you're like, I should have been more competent at that conflict. And that idea that I often come back to if I had more time, I'd probably be more competent at dealing with that conflict. I could have said this, I should have done this, and been able to actually make me really not feel as bad about that conflict.
Yeah. Well, you've said to me in the past, conflict competence is a life skill.
Yeah, and I think it's often when you can be competent, I think, in conversations when they're going really well. I think about when we've had our talks or when I'm in conversations with other folks, I tend to feel really assured about and being competent. And when it leads into conflict, um, that can really make me feel really different about that relationship, about the conversation. Where did it go wrong? And when conflict happens, those skills that I have in casual conversations can seem either really inadequate, or the tools to be that I use are no longer like existing, even though they typically come very naturally to me. And so it's almost like something has kind of happened in the hardwire, of my brain. And I often think about how my emotions start to play into that conflict. And so the skills that I have with friends, I guess, don't kind of hide or disappear when conflict situations happen. Um, it's still knowing that I can rely on those skills and tools that I have in communication and also in conflict, knowing that I still have them in my toolbox. It's just more that reassurance that they are there and that they exist.
Well, that's it exactly, is that you have the skills, but conflict makes it hard to use them. It's like conflict sets up a block. So there's no magic formula that transforms somebody from conflict incompetent to suddenly conflict rock star. But here's the important point, and I'm going to be hammering this a lot. The skills you need are the skills you already use and have when
Mm.
you're interacting with others. And a lot of people don't feel like they have good conversational skills. This work will help them in that case too. The difference is that in friendly conversations, you use those skills naturally. So if you don't use them naturally now, working through your conflict competence skills will help you also to feel better about your casual conversation skills. They go together. In the emotional turmoil of conflict, you need those skills more than ever, and you may not be able to access them as easily. So this is our work, Tyson.
Mhm.
Uh, how do we become more conflict competent? And I'm going to suggest that next time we talk about conflict patterns, we all have our usual ways of dealing with stressful situations, what I call our default or our go-to or our conflict happy place. We'll discuss whether your usual patterns are helping you or getting in the way of your doing conflict better. So, this is going to be our journey to come back here every week. And thank you so much for dropping in and listening to us. We hope you'll join us again. Tell your friends that we're discussing how to do conflict better, because you never know when you're going to be called upon to be more conflict competent.
I'm looking forward to coming back next week with you and learning more about conflict patterns.
Thank you.